not touch that date. Do not touch that date. Do not touch that date. Do not touch that date. Beauties, Beautiful J here. Today I'm coming to you guys with another nursing video. As you guys may know, if you follow me on Instagram, I recently passed my NCLEX on the first try, and I got so many questions on what resources did I use to pass my NCLEX on the first try, and basically study tips as well. So instead of answering all of those questions individually, I thought it would be best to come here on YouTube and make a video for others that are looking for materials and resources that may help them to pass their NCLEX on the first try. So I'm going to give you everything that I did to pass my boards on the first try, because we want to be one and done. This test is very expensive and it is time consuming. So you want to make sure that you are utilizing your time properly, so that way when you sit for those boards, you can pass on the first time as well. I'm gonna jump right into my tips and tricks that I use to help me pass my NCLEX on the first time. For starters, I did get the maximum questions on my boards. I do want to throw that out there just to give you guys a picture that it doesn't really matter how many questions you get on your exam. All that matters is how well you are doing on the exam. So ultimately, you can pass your boards. So the first thing I did when preparing for studying for my NCLEX, I did, of course, ask other people that took the boards as well, things that they recommended for me to use and things that they recommended for me to do to make sure that I'm studying effectively, so that when I sit for my boards, I felt a little bit more comfortable. I'm going to tell you, you're never going to feel like you're ready to sit for the boards. So don't ever think that if you aren't feeling 100% ready, that you're not ready to take the test. Regardless of whatever, pick your date, stick to it. Do not change your date whatsoever. Leave your date alone. First thing that I did when preparing for my boards was I made sure that I had some type of review or refresher course to basically help me with all of that information that we've learned throughout nursing school, because by the end of your nursing school journey, you may have forgotten some things or a little rusty on things that you were taught in the beginning. So it is very beneficial that you try to use some type of refresher course to make sure that you are refreshing your brain on those things that you took semesters ago. So the thing that I used for my refresher course was Mark Klimek. I don't know if you heard of him before. He is freaking amazing. When I say I love Mark Klimek so much, he really hounded in on those very important things that we must know regardless of whatever. I really recommend, if you can, get a hold of his audio lectures, so that way you can listen to his audio lectures as well if you want to try him out to see if he is a great fit for you, or refreshing your brain on all of that information that you learned throughout nursing school. I really loved his lectures because he had a way of saying things, and it's so much more simpler than they did in school. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, when I first learned this, my brain was all over the place. But he had a way of really dumbing it down, not to be rude, in a way that it was very helpful for you to remember that information. Along with his audio lectures, he also has a PDF document that follows along with the audio lectures so that you can take notes while you're listening to his lectures, which I feel is very beneficial, so that way you can remember those things and you can go back to look up all of those things that you listened to for that day. In total, it was 12 lectures that I listened to, and I listened to those things 3 times all the way through, literally from start to finish, from lecture 1 to lecture 12. I listened to it all the way through 3 times so that my brain can really process all of the information, because it was a lot of information and it allowed me to recall some things that I may have forgotten. Average of the lectures were approximately like an hour plus, so you can only imagine that was a lot of information. It was all of nursing school condensed into 12 lectures. So I do highly recommend if you do listen to his audio lectures, try to listen to them more than one time so you can really understand the information and you could catch things that you may have missed the first time you listen or even the second time you listen. It also follow along with my pink comprehensive ATI NCLEX review book, given to me for free by my school. I don't know if your school is going to do that or whatever the case may be, but my school gave us this for free, as well as offered a NCLEX review course with ATI, which basically it was for 3 weeks, and they went through some of the main topics in this book so that we could study the information or just basically have like a refresher course before we even graduated. I did like the course a little bit, didn't prefer it over Mark Klimek's, but it was beneficial because they did go over NCLEX style questions and how to answer those questions in the 3-week NCLEX review course. But they did follow along with this peak book to the T as well. And after we finished the course, they did give us access to go back and listen to these lectures as well. I did listen to it a little bit through ATI, but I really stuck with mainly Mark Klimek because I didn't want to so many resources. Not good to do that. I did go in and review with the ATI live lectures on the ATI website, but you have to get access to those things. So you'll probably have to ask your school if they are going to offer that for you. If they don't, I don't know any other way for you to get access to those live lectures. They are much shorter than Mark Klimek's lectures. They really hound and focus on like key things throughout the textbook that they strictly follow along with their pink book. So if you have the pink book, or even if your school don't provide you the pink book, you could also get this on Amazon as well. I utilize this because it is a very short and condensed version of all of the information and topics for nursing school. So what I did was go through or organize my studying by systems. So in the front of the NCLEX book, it breaks everything down by units. So you have in the beginning, test taking strategies and things of that sort. It's just giving you tips and things. And then also they have like leadership and management. And then it goes into your community health nursing, pharm, funds, med surg, mental health, and maternal, newborn, nursing care of child, etc. So what I did was organize my studying when I did the pink book by systems. So I find that this helps me out a lot because it allowed me to really focus in on those topics while I was studying for my boards, so that I didn't feel like I was all over the place while I was studying. And I was more so focusing in and able to see my weaknesses, which I already had an idea prior to even studying, because you kind of know what you struggle with while you were in school. So you could kind of start in those areas. So I knew med surg and pharm was my weakest spots in school. So I really made sure that I studied med surg and pharm, which those are probably like the highest percentage of questions that you'll probably get on NCLEX. So I really made sure that I really studied those topics and broke those systems down, so that way I really understood which system was maybe my weakest area and which system was my strongest area. So it allowed me time to go back and really review those systems so that I could have a very good understanding of that system. What I did was followed along with basically each system. So if I wanted to study cardiovascular, which I did start off with cardiovascular system first, I did the cardiovascular pharm section, and then I also went over to the adult med surg unit to do the cardiovascular med surg section. And the reason why I did that was to allow myself to be knocking 2 birds with 1 stone, basically knocking out pharmacology as well as knocking out the med surg. And it only made sense to do the pharm in the med surg for that topic at the same time, so you could put the whole picture together, because it really didn't make sense to study the med surg, cardiovascular, or whatever system you're starting with, then after you finish med surg then go to pharm. Like, that's so backwards to me. But if that's what you choose to do, by all means, but I felt like it was beneficial for me to go ahead and study each system in the med-surg along with the pharm system as well. So what I did is I went through and I basically jotted down notes as I read through them. Like I said, this is a very short and condensed version of school. Basically, it gives you the main topics that you need to study for and those key things that they may be looking for. As you can see, my page is like written all over. I took notes, I did stickies as well, so that I could go back to those topics if I needed to, because these were like my topics that I really wanted to focus on because they were my weaker spots. After I did both the review for the pharm and the med-surg for that system, then I went into Uworld, which is my third resource that I use to study. I did utilize Uworld. I love Uworld. It is freaking amazing. They really set the questions at like really hard, so I feel like it kind of trains your brain to prepare for the style of questions that you may get when you take your boards, and it gets you to think critically when it comes to answering your questions, which is what you would need when you are sitting for your board. So I do recommend doing Uworld. And what I did was I bought the 90-day trial. I believe it was the 90-day, and it gave me 2 self-assessments. I did one self-assessment before studying anything, and I treated it like a pre-test, and then I did my questions, and then at the end I did the second assessment for like a post-test to see if I progressed from the first self-assessment to throughout my studying and things of that sort, to kind of see how I felt about taking my boards. While I did the Uworld questions, I do recommend that you write out the rationales, because they give you rationales really in detail, give you pictures for some of the questions and everything. I love how they give very good rationales on Uworld. Reason why I did choose them to study with, because I heard so many great things about how they set up their questions and the rationales and things of that sort. After doing research, I found that Uworld was probably going to be the best fit for me, and so I went with it, and it did a very good job with preparing me to think critically for those questions when it came to my board. I do want to say that I did not always write down everything, because I was kind of getting very tired and exhausted with studying or writing down all of that information. So I did utilize the flashcard option on Uworld, because you do have an option to make those flashcards. One of my friends pointed that option out because she's a flashcard type of person, so she suggested to me and our other friend to utilize the flashcard option, so that way you can move through those questions a lot faster, because I did find that once it got closer to the time for me to take my exam, I still had quite a few questions to do, and I wanted to use all of the questions in the question bank before taking the NCLEX, which was about 2,000 or so questions, and I literally did every single question on Uworld. I was determined to get through every single question so that I can really feel like I really went in and studied my hardest for that exam. Now, if you don't finish all the questions, do not beat yourself up. One of my friends did not finish all of her questions whatsoever, and she still passed. She actually passed with a lesser amount than me. I think she got 75 questions, and I got 145 questions on my NCLEX as well. So it doesn't matter if you finish all of them or not. I just recommend that you try to get through a good amount of them, at least maybe approximately like 1,500 questions before taking the board, so you can kind of prepare yourself and train your mind to think critically like you're going to need to do for the board. I studied for approximately 2 months, and that was only because I was waiting a long time for my sit pass. It was like they did not want to give me my sit pass. I ended up having to call to basically see what was up and expedite the process, and they ended up fixing the issue. I do recommend that if you are having problems with getting your sit pass, if you've noticed like your other classmates in your cohort have gotten theirs and it's like a few of you you that hasn't, just follow up with them and see, hey, what's up? Like, I noticed that a lot of majority of my classmates has gotten their sit pass, but I haven't. And 9 times out of 10, it's something on their end or with the school, your school, that may need to be fixed and reason why you didn't get the sit pass. And that was kind of the situation with me. So I'm very glad that I called them, because I probably would have been waiting forever if I hadn't called them. Like I said, I studied for approximately 2 months. Most people would say try to study for 30 days max, so that way you won't start to forget the information that you learned in school. But I kind of was like forced to wait 2 months with COVID and everything going on. It was like the spots was very limited with finding a location, and I ended up having to drive an hour or so away to take my test from where I stay, because of the simple fact it was no availability in my hometown to take the test. So I do want to throw that out there, that may be the situation with you. So just make sure that you're studying as much as possible, and also give yourself time to take a break. I did take a break here and there. I worked 1 day a week. So on that day that I did work, that was kind of like my day of rest from studying. So I won't feel overwhelmed, or I wouldn't feel overwhelmed. I do recommend doing that, so that way you don't feel overwhelmed with your studying, because it is a lot of information that you have to study, and it does take a lot of time. So try to give yourself that time to take a break before continuing on with your studies. Some people take 1 day, some people take 2 days. It's all up to you. It's your journey. If you know that you've studied as much as possible, you did all of the questions, you listened to Klimek, whatever source you use to recall that information, you've written out your rationales, you've studied, and you take that self-assessment if you choose to go with Uworld, and you see that you didn't get a high chance of passing, do not touch that date. 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 I got very freaked out because the night before I had to drive up to where I was taking my test. I decided to study basically until like 2 o'clock in the morning. And after doing that, or finish up the questions, the little bit of questions that I had left, I decided to finish those up and review the last few to finish all of my questions in my Q bank on Uworld. I decided right after doing that to take the self-assessment, the second one, the post-test, and it gave me a borderline. And I'm just like freaking out. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. I probably need to push this date back. I was freaking out. I text my friend. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm driving up there tomorrow. She was already there with our other friend. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm driving up there tomorrow. I got a borderline on NCLEX, a probability chance of passing, and I'm not gonna waste my time and my money, so I just think I should just push it back. And everyone kept telling me no. I freaked out even when I got there the next day, because my friend took it the day before and she was like crying, thinking she failed. And I'm just like, oh man, I got that borderline. I got that borderline on Uworld. They said I'm a borderline chance of passing. I don't think I should go through it. I was like calling my mom, like, oh, I'm about to come back. I was freaking out. But I ended up staying, needless to say, and I ended up passing. So I do want to encourage you that if you do find yourself in that situation and you get that borderline on Uworld, or if you feel like you just aren't ready, like I said, you're never going to be 100% ready or 100% confident, but you are going to feel a little bit better. Like, I do feel like I was able to recite some information. Like, my friends noticed too. They was like, you know the information. Like, you probably studied more than us. Like, I literally studied so hard for that exam. It would have been very unfair to myself if I pushed that date back out of fear, thinking that I was going to fail. And look, I passed on the first try. So I do want to say, if you put in the work and you put in the time and you know that you studied hard, you feel a bit of confidence that you'll pass that test, do not push your test date back for any thing. Like, do not push it back. Those are all of my tips and tricks and things and resources that I use to study for my boards to pass on the first try. I do hope that you find these tips helpful and these resources helpful as well. Did not get this far for nothing. You made it through nursing school. You made it through that part. You passed your exit exams. At this point, it's just really passing your boards and getting ready to be an amazing nurse. You got this. You got this. You got this. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and hit the subscribe button down below, and I'll see you guys in my next video.